made a plain paper bag. Yeah. If you were to if you were to crush a ball, okay, na soft ball, it will regain its shape, right? So some of the changes we see that are reversible in nature. Also, like if you were to elongate a spring, it will regain its original size now. So changes are of two types. Then there are some changes that cannot be reversed. Hmm. For example, if you were to burn a piece of paper, it converts into ash. Will you be getting back the will you
No.
be getting that paper back? No. Getting it now. So changes are of two types. One in which we get the original product back, while in the one in which the original product cannot be taken back, cannot be obtained back, right? So in some changes, we see that new substances are formed also right now. Like the example just we had the burning of a paper in which a new substance was being formed. Also, for example, the burning of a candle. That is also an irreversible change because you can't get the wax that has evaporated that cannot be taken back, right? That has basically evaporated into the atmosphere, right? So once the candle is burned, it cannot be brought back to its original
Yeah.
size and shape.
Sir,
Getting it? Hmm.
yeah, like there's many changes around this, like
Hmm.
day and night, and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
also weather,
Weather,
what season,
season,
yeah,
change of climate, right now.
yeah,
So all these are
yeah,
all these are changes around us. Change is imminent in nature,
yeah.
right now. You can't just stop change. Okay, now. Then, if you were to talk about the basis, it has
Stop.
been categorized into two types, right? Reversible and irreversible. So what are some of the reversible changes in the nature that we see? Can you give some examples?
It can be like
Hmm.
re a reversible, like
Mm-hmm.
if it is like a uh, like if it is like metal,
Hmm.
you can like iron, like paper clip, then you can, like if it is bent, you can get it to shape after that.
Yes, yes.
And,
Hmm.
ice
Al-
cube, ice cube into
Hmm.
water, you can
Hmm.
get ice cube after that.
Yes.
uh,
After
and
melt,
melting.
hmm.
Yeah,
After melting it, it can be frozen back again.
yeah.
Right now. Hmm. Now, the changes that we see in the nature, इनके पीछे वजह क्या होती है? What are the reasons behind the changes that we see? Hmm. What is the cause behind all the changes? For example, हम climate की अगर बात करते हैं, we always say the environmentalists are saying that the climate is changing, right? So now the earth, certain portion of the earth is unfit to be to be inhabited. Humans cannot habitate certain places on earth now because there the climate has changed. So climate क्यों change हो रहा है? Why is it changing? Because of global warming. So global warming क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि heat is increasing. The heat of the atmosphere is increasing, thereby polar ice caps are melting, thereby the level of oceans are also rising. So thereby जो people coastal areas में रहते हैं, they are in danger. Getting it now? So here
Yeah.
we say that the factor responsible for change was heat. यहाँ पे क्या factor responsible था? It was heat. Okay. Or we can say that if you were to break something into pieces, यहाँ पर भी change हुआ. So here we say that the factor responsible for the change was the force which you applied. Okay, now. Or if you were to mix two substances, for example, if you were to take acid, okay, now, and mix it with base, take a hydrochloric acid solution and mix it with, let's say, sodium hydroxide, then you will be getting a salt. जो salt हम use करते हैं घर पे, that salt can be like obtained in that manner. Okay, so there also you see, when you mix two things together, then a change was observed and a new product was formed. Right, Abu?
Yes.
Okay. So following reasons, what were the reasons which I just discussed? Either by increasing the heat, we can bring change, or by applying force, we can bring change, or by mixing two components into each other, we can bring change. Right? In some of the cases, the original product on which either heat or force or they were mixed with some other component, the original component in some of the cases can be obtained back. For example, consider the case of heating. You just gave the example of that one, where you, if you were to heat the ice cubes, you can obtain the ice cubes back by freezing the water again. Getting it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you have some other examples also where you can't get back the substance. For example, after burning the wood, you can't get back the wood. Okay. Hmm. Uh, like if you were to mix oil and water, you remember in the previous class we discussed about the uh, separation of two immiscible liquids by the process of decantation, right?
Mm.
So there, अगर हमने water and oil को add किया, so there it can be separated. So we say
Yeah.
that it's a reversible change. But at the same time, अगर हमने, if we were to add acid and base, तो chemical solutions को हमने add कर दिया. So thereby the product that you will be getting, it will be a new product, and हमारा original product we cannot get it back once the reaction has occurred between them. Also, there's one more factor that there's a physical change. यहाँ पे physical change होगा. Okay, there you can obtain the original substance back. For example, the melting of ice. This is just an example of change of state from solid to liquid. So thereby we consider it to be a physical change because उसके chemical compositions में कोई भी changes नहीं हुए. Getting it, Abu?
Yeah.
Yes. But what is it that happens in the case of irreversible change? क्या होता है वहां पर? Chemical composition में changes होते हैं. Chemical composition में changes होते हैं. For example, ये एक wood है. This is a wood. Okay. Wood, when you burned it, it converted into ash. ये ash में convert हो गया. Both of them had different compositions. दोनों की compositions different होती है. Compositions, by composition, I basically mean to say, I'm talking about the atoms. I'm talking about the elements in it. Okay now. So different types of elements से wood बना है, and the elements present in the ash, now they are different. Why? Because यहाँ पर chemical change हुआ है. So जहाँ भी chemical change होता है, thereby it's an irreversible change. Yes, Abu,
Yeah.
is the thing getting clear to you?
Yes.
Getting it now? Okay. So reversible changes are there and irreversible changes are there. Getting it now? Okay. Also, first let's talk about like change जो हो रहा है, why it's occurring. What is the cause behind the change? Few moments ago मैंने mention किया था. Will you please repeat that?
What's it?
We can bring about a change in a substance by certain ways. Certain ways से हम changes ला सकते हैं. What were those ways?
Like, if we add two things, we can,
Hmm.
it would become a new
Hmm.
acid and base.
That was just an example. That will be giving you a new product. If it gives you a new product, that is an example of a change. So we can bring change in a substance by following ways. First ways was If you remember, try to please recall. कुछ seconds पहले हमने बात की है.
Sir, I didn't understand the question.
My question is that we can bring change in a substance by following ways. In what ways we can bring change? Like by heating a substance, we can bring change in that substance, or as as you gave just an example of mixing an acid and base, that will result to formation of a new substance. Right now,
Heating, cooling,
Mhm. Heating, okay, cooling,
mixing.
right, or mixing two substances together,
Yeah,
or more than two substances, mixing of multiple substances, and then by applying force. Now
yeah,
by applying force, if we were to talk about the heating and cooling, what are the changes that is caused by heating? Whenever you will be heating a substance now, it will be getting affected in several ways. What are the several ways in which a substance might get affected if it is heated? Like the temperature of that substance will obviously increase.
yeah,
Like some of the substances, for example, if you were to heat an iron rod, so in that case, only the temperature of the iron rod increases. The iron rod becomes hot. Consider a case of iron rod here. क्या इसका state change होता है? Does it become liquid after heating it?
yeah,
If you were to heat it to extreme temperature, let's say to 700, 800 degrees Celsius, then the state will change to liquid, right?
yeah,
Or if you were to just heat it to a normal temperature of, let's say, 70 or 80 degrees Celsius, then it just becomes hot red right now. And once the source of heat is removed, after a few minutes, it might restore its temperature back to normal, right? So some objects gets hot but does not change in any other way, right? You could have an example of rocks also. Rock के pieces भी हम ले सकते हैं. Rock pieces. Rock pieces in the bright summer day, they also become warmer, while in the night time they become colder, right?
yeah,
Rocks also become hot during the bright summer day. While अगर हम बात करते हैं, if you were to talk about the railway tracks, you know, in the railway tracks, gaps are intentionally put between the railway tracks. You know why?
the heat could produce.
Because we know that certain metals, like the metals, for example, iron, when they are heated, they expand. Regular heating होती है iron objects की for a long period of time, then it will start to expand. अगर मैंने इसे gap नहीं दिया होता, if I were to not provide, or the engineers were to provide no gaps between the tracks, then what will happen? It will start to expand now. It will start to expand now, and thereby it might break here. It might break here, right? So here the tracks are expanding. ये expand हो रहा है in both the directions. The railway tracks are expanding so that there intentionally we leave some empty space in which they can expand. हमने कुछ empty spaces leave किए so that the track can expand. Okay, otherwise if you were to not leave some space, what will happen? It will be expanding. Eventually it will break. To avoid that, so some substances, some objects, they get hot also and they expand in size also. Yes, Abu?
Yeah,
Some In the first case, we saw that some object becomes hot but does not change in any way. Right now, change in any way. Also, start taking notes of the class also. Okay, do one thing. जैसे हमारी classes हो रही हैं, parallelly take the notes of the class also. Okay. So as we have begun with the new chapter, Abu, from this chapter onwards, do take notes of the class. Okay, and also keep your camera on in the class. Okay. Turn your camera on. So second case हमने क्या बात की? We saw that some objects become hot and expand. Becomes
Should I start from here? The notes.
yeah, from here we can. This is the first page. Okay, now so from here you can start. So some object becomes hot and expand. Example is railway tracks. Railway track. Okay. Then some objects will become hot and will change their state also. Right now. The third case is some objects change their state after becoming hot. Okay. Example is water to water vapor. Okay, is it visible properly to you or not? क्या आपको properly दिख रहा है?
Yeah.
What I have written?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Note down the points which I have written so far.
Done.
Done? Good. Now talking about mixing of multiple substances. What are the examples we have? What happens when we mix two substances together? For example, if you were to make a solution by mixing water soluble substances into water, any substance that is soluble in water, just mix it in water. Thereby you will be getting a new substance there as well, right? So one example is mixing of water soluble substances in water. Examples are sugar plus water, salt plus water, okay, or lemonade. These are some of the examples. Then you have other examples also, like mixing of acid and base. Acid and base. As of now, just understood that the baking powder that is used in the kitchen, you have heard of the baking soda or not? Baking soda, baking powder, it is used in the kitchen. It is used in foods. Food में इस्तेमाल होता है. So if you were to add an acid into base, mixing of acid and base
Sir,
gives
like vinegar and baking soda.
exactly vinegar and baking soda. Good example. So if they were to be added, then a salt will be obtained. You will be obtaining a salt, but not the salt that you have got it at your home. Not exactly if you were to mix vinegar and the baking soda. Okay now. So that is another example. So there a new substance is formed. Salt is a new substance formed here. Salt plus water. Salt water is the new substance formed here. Lemon plus water plus sugar or either salt. So lemonade is the new substance formed here. Getting it now? Now, what changes can be brought when what changes can be brought if we were to apply pressure, if we were to exert force, right? For example, there's a solid piece of any substance. For example, you have a brick, you hammer it, you will break it into pieces, right? So the shape and size both has changed of that brick. So by applying force, we can change shape and size. Getting it now? Now, you see, out of solid, liquid, and gas, which can be compressed more easily. Compressing solid is tough. Compressing liquid is also difficult, while compressing air is easier. So air can be compressed. Okay, Abu. Air can be compressed. So thereby that is also an example of change. Getting it now?
Yeah.
Then talking about like a metals, certain metals. If you remember, पहले हमने बात की थी certain properties of metals. Like metals are malleable and ductile. Metals are malleable and ductile. Will you please explain the two properties which we have discussed? Ductile हम किसे कहते हैं? What do we understand by ductile? Yes. Yes, sir. Abu, define ductility. What do you understand by ductility? Yes. Ductility किसे हम कहते हैं? Yeah. Yes, Abu, are you there in the class or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So please respond. Ductility, what do you understand by ductility? If you remember, in the previous classes, we have talked about several properties of the metals. Can you list some of the properties of metals? Metals की क्या क्या properties होते हैं?
Like
Like starting
iron.
from basic.
Iron is like good conductor of electricity. Copper.
Copper is also good conductor of electricity.
Yeah, and like some metals like in some way like they're uh, like aluminium, like they're slightly transparent.
Slightly not transparent. They have got shiny surfaces. Okay,
Yeah.
now a freshly cut piece of any metal will shine. Okay. but after some time that starts to react with the
Yes.
air, so that it becomes, it have has got then a dull appearance.
Yeah.
So metal is a material that is what it is hard generally, although there are some exceptions also. For example, sodium metal is not very hard. You can easily cut a sodium metal with a knife. Okay, sodium metal can be cut using a knife. कुछ exceptions हैं, but overall almost all the metals are hard. They are sonorous, meaning that when they are hit they will produce a sound. Yeah, if you were
Yeah.
to hit a piece of rock on a metal sheet or on a wall, which one will produce more sound?
Metal.
Metal, obviously. Then metals are good conductor of electricity. And further, we talked about the ductility and malleability property of metals also. For example, metals like copper or iron, they can be stretched when they are heated. They can be stretched and converted into wires. So that property was called as ductility. That property is what? Ductility.
Utility.
Or metals can be beaten, it can be heated and then beaten into sheets. Then that property is called as malleability. Remember that. Okay, remember that. So what I will be doing now, from now on I will be putting surprise questions from the previous chapters also in the class. पिछली क्लासेस से भी मैं कुछ क्वेश्चंस इंक्लूड करूंगा क्लास में. ओके, सो कीप रिवाइजिंग whatever we have done in the past. Okay, now, so air can be compressed, and by heating metals can be hammered into sheets or made into wires. So metals can be hammered into sheets and drawn into wire. Okay, so thereby also there is a change now. Like you had a solid piece of iron like this, now it has been made into sheets like this, or either into wire like this. Yeah, so यहाँ पर भी change हो रहा है ना, right? Or you have like a rubber band, right? So any material that is elastic materials can be stretched, right? So thereby the shape and size of that material is changing. So that is also also change. Okay, note down all these three changes. Okay, note down all of them. Also, some of the changes which you are seeing here, some of the changes are temporary, some of the changes is lasting for a longer period of time. तो टाइम ड्यूरेशन की भी हम बात करते हैं. लाइक सम चेंजेस कैन रिवर्स बैक टू इट्स ओरिजिनल स्टेट वेरी इंस्टेंटेनियसली. ओके ना, while some changes, for example, the expansion of the railway tracks, if it expands once, it will take somewhat time to return to its original size. Yeah, so कुछ changes rapidly होते हैं, कुछ changes slow होते हैं. Right now, like for example, the change in year, जो हमारा ईयर चेंज हो रहा है फ्रॉम वन ईयर टू नेक्स्ट ईयर, दैट इज अ स्लो चेंज. राइट नाउ, some changes are very instantaneous. Also the factors which we have discussed them, they lead to changes like reversible and irreversible changes also. Some changes are reversible while others are irreversible. That we'll be discussing in detail. Okay, yeah, do let me know when you are done taking down the notes. Okay, Abu.
Done.
Done? Good. Okay. Now moving on. Changes around us can be classified into reversible changes and irreversible changes. That is what we're going to discuss about now. Okay. Look here. These are associated with the chemical and physical changes also. Like वैसे changes जहाँ पर सिर्फ physical property substance की change होती है, where no new substance is formed. That will be an example of a reversible change. So the name means that the original substance can be obtained back by doing certain changes in the factors responsible for the change of the state of original substance. Then in the case of irreversible change, chemical composition substances की change हो जाती है, thereby the original substance cannot be taken directly back. Read the paragraph given here. Read the two paragraphs, please.
Reversible changes. Reversible changes can be described as changes that can be reversed by reversing the action or changing the conditions. Example, freezing of water, rolling of a chapati from dough, etc. Irreversible changes can be described changes that cannot be reversed even after bringing about changes in the condition. Example, rusting of iron, cooking of vegetables, etc.
This is a touch me not plant, or also Mimosa pudica. Mimosa pudica, that is the scientific name of this plant. Touch me not. So here, if you were to touch the touch me not plant, it looks like this right now. And after some time, it restores back to its original shape. It restores its shape. So that is an example of which type of change. Is it a reversible or irreversible change? Yes,
Reversible.
obviously a reversible change का example here, right now. Okay. What about this one? That is also
Irreversible.
irreversible change. Okay. Prior to this, I told you about the chemical change and the physical change as well. So what does a chemical change, Abu? Please try to define it. Chemical change. What happens in this case?
There have been no chemical reaction.
In the case of chemical change की हम बात कर रहे हैं. What happens in the case of chemical change?
No chemicals would be included.
No. Chemical change means what? The chemical composition of the substance changes. Chemical change simply means if there is change in the chemical composition of the substance. For example, take the case of burning of paper again. Here, take the case of burning of paper. There's a piece of paper which you have burnt. Now it has converted into piece of ash. So thereby, we see that it might be consisting of some X element in it. Now the ash that has formed, it consists of, let's say, some Z element in it. Getting it what I'm trying to say here? Yes. So in the case of chemical change, the original composition of the substance changes. By composition, I basically mean to say that the particles originally present in that substance, जो इस substance में originally particles present होते हैं, their nature changes. It undergoes a change. So chemical changes are those changes in which chemical properties of a substance is changing and a new substance is formed here. Yeah. Or for example, you have raw vegetables and cooked vegetables. What do you think is the difference between the two, raw vegetable and cooked vegetable? Yes,
This chemical
chemical changes. जो इसके chemical compositions है, that has changed. When I say composition, what does it mean? Suppose I have piece of copper here, copper wire है मेरे पास, और I have an iron, okay, or I have water. What are the composition of these substances? It is made up of copper element, Cu element. This is copper. This is made up of iron element. ये iron element से बना है. This is made up of copper element. While the water is made up of hydrogen plus what? Carbon, or is it oxygen? Hydrogen and oxygen. So this basically copper or iron or hydrogen or oxygen element, this basically is the chemical composition of that substance. ये substance की chemical composition है. ये क्या है? Chemical composition है. But when the chemical composition changes, thereby we say that it's a irreversible change or a chemical change. For example, iron पे अगर rust लगता है, if it starts to rust, look here, आयरन एलिमेंट यहाँ पे सिर्फ प्योरली आयरन है हमारा. आयरन को Fe से रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं. इन सीनियर क्लासेस यू विल गेट टू नो दैट. ओके, आफ्टर रस्ट a layer of water and oxygen basically forms in it. Oxygen and water reacts with this iron here, and a layer of rust forms over the iron object. And thereby, if you were to look at the composition of rust, if it is Fe2O3 dot H2O. So here Fe is iron है, O is oxygen here, it is oxygen. You have got hydrogen also, and what else? You have got oxygen again. So originally composition of iron was just iron only. A piece of iron that is not rusted, it consists of iron only in it. But after some time, if you will leave it in the open, exposed to moisture and air, it will start to corrode. इसके ऊपर rust की layer form होगी, and that rust is basically this Fe2O3.XH2. In later classes, you will get to know. Only क्योंकि हम chemical change की बात कर रहे हैं, that's why I'm telling you here. This now consists of multiple components in it, right, Abu? क्या क्या components हैं? Please read them.
Iron, oxygen, hydrogen, copper element.
No, oxygen,
Yeah.
oxygen. Just talking about rust. So originally composition क्या थी? Just iron, right? So here we
Yeah.
see that the composition has changed, in fact increased here. So whenever the chemical composition or the chemical properties of a substance changes and new substance is formed, then we see that chemical changes occurred. So a new substance is formed here right now. So the definition of chemical change is basically whenever there is a change in chemical composition of a substance, okay, and a new substance is formed, then a chemical change has occurred. Note down this.
Sir, should I read this composition?
Yes, composition. This chemical composition, this one here. This one. No, just write down this much. Okay. If you want, parallelly, you can draw this somewhere. okay, in rough, but just write down this. Okay, as example you can give example of rust. आप rust का example include कर सकते हैं. Okay, also include examples. Okay, मैं यहाँ पे लिख दे रहा हूँ. Example is rust, formation of rust, and cooking of food. Or you can also include burning of paper. Okay now. Write down this. Yes, Abu. Done?
Done.
Now, further note down more points regarding the chemical change. What are the characteristics of chemical change? So I'm writing it over here. First thing is that in most cases, in most cases, in the chemical change, properties as we saw are properties of products form are different from the products of original substance. So the property of rust is different from that of iron, right? That is the first point. We say that properties of products formed are different from the original products. All right now. Now we know that iron, the property of iron is that it is magnetic in nature, it conducts electricity, it conducts heat, right? But the property of rust, Neither does it neither does it is more magnetic. Okay, is very less magnetic. It does not conduct electricity, nor is it hard in nature. The properties are entirely different, right? Next thing is that most of the chemical changes, Abu, are irreversible. They are what?
Mhm.
Irreversible in nature. So most of the chemical
Mhm.
changes are irreversible.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Also, whenever there is a chemical change, there's a chemical change, it will always result in changes in energy. What do I mean? For example, in the case of chemical change, for chemical change to occur, it might also be consuming some energy. For example, when you are heating a piece of paper, thereby the heat which you have provided to the paper, it's a form of energy. We know heat is a form of energy. Like light is a form of energy, heat is also a form of energy. So thereby there will be change in energy also. What do I mean? The changes that has occurred here, there is always a change in energy there. For example, when you burnt a piece of paper, when you were burning a paper, thereby it was releasing what? It was releasing light plus heat now. Yeah. So thereby, isn't there some evolution of energy here? क्या हमारी एनर्जी यहाँ पे निकल रही है, जो भी पेपर के अंदर जो भी stored energy थी, is it not being emitted out here in the form of light and heat? Yeah, like this paper acts
yeah,
as a fuel here. Like, you know what I'm trying to say here? Hmm?
yeah,
Any substance that burns, all the substance in fact that you see around us has got stored energy in them. सभी के अंदर energy stored होती है right now. Any substance that you've got, whether you have a piece of paper, you burn it, you will get energy in the form of heat and light. Whether you have got wood, whether you have got plastic, any substance, name it, that has got some energy stored in it. So there all will always be a energy change whenever there is a chemical change, right?
yeah.
So the next point is that the changes always result in energy change. Note down these points also. Okay. Note down these points. These are the characteristics of chemical change.
Sir, only this, right?
Only this one, this one. The 3 points which I mentioned here, 1, 2, and 3. I'm naming some of the changes. You have to classify whether they are chemical change or physical change. Okay, now, like breaking of glass. Will it be a physical change or chemical change?
Physical.
Physical. Keep writing. आप लिखते भी रहो. Okay. Boiling of water. Boiling of water will always also be an example of
Physical. Physical.
physical change. Okay. Chopping of wood.
Physical.
That's also physical change. Good. Dissolving sugar in water.
Chemical.
Hmm?
Chemical.
Look here. Dissolving sugar in water? No, that won't be an example of chemical change. Have we noted it somewhere as chemical change? No, that is just a change, not a chemical change. Okay. Why? Because if you were to heat the water, you can obtain salt back. If you were to have, remember we discussed that in the previous class, how to separate salt from the water by simply evaporation.
Yeah.
So thereby we can obtain the original substance back now. So that will be an example of physical change just, right? Okay. Those were examples of physical change. Or if you were to cut a piece of paper into pieces, cut a paper, is that a physical change or a chemical change?
Physical.
Physical change, good. Also, the digestion of food that goes in our body. Is that a physical or chemical change?
Yeah. Chemical.
Chemical change. Good. Can you name some of the daily life examples where you observe chemical changes? Have a look at the appliances in your room. Where can you observe the chemical changes going on?
The electricity.
Electricity. What chemical changes do you observe?
Like the electricity, it's getting used. Or a car. The petrol is like
Burning of petrol, that is a chemical change. That is correct. But how do you relate to electricity with chemical change? Yeah. Okay, that we will be
it
discussing
is
in detail
also
in next
getting
class.
used.
Look here. When high voltage current is passing through the wire, then the wire becomes warm. But as soon as the flow of current stops in that piece of wire, then the wire turns to its normal temperature. So thereby, is any new substance formed there? No,
No.
right? But there are some chemical effects of electric current also, right now. For example, uh, if someone were to dip two wires in water, not the pure water, impure water, thereby the person might get to see some bubbles evolving near the wire. That is an example of chemical change. Okay. In the battery that we use at our homes, thereby also chemical changes going inside that battery, due to which electricity is generated and passing through the circuit. Okay, Boo. By the way, done. Have you noted down the points or not?
No, sir, at the last.
Okay.